Hello, Power Up Nation. Pat Council here, and I'm calling this month Jam in June. So this is the month where we still have to work. We still have to do what it takes to attract the necessary successes and build our magnificent life, but we get to have some fun along the way. Success is who you are. So this is why you get to have fun. And don't worry, I've got some caveats for you because you said, is she kidding me? Does she know how hard I'm working? Does she know how hard it takes how hard it is to make something happen? Yes, been there, done that more than once. Every time I set out to do something I've never done before, it's not exactly what I call easy, but I get it done because I don't fight so hard against my own self. So with that being said, let's get on with this. We're going to talk about having fun while attracting success and what it really takes. Because in reality, success is who you are. So you say, well, why am I not always successful? Because unless you release your success energy, you will never achieve your goals and you will never build the life that you desire, that magnificent life, or the life that God has planned for you. Now, the life that you desire and the life that God has planned for you, the two are not always the same because it depends on, let's say, our thinking. Now, you'll find out more about that, I guess, throughout the month as we talk about releasing that success energy or connecting more with who you are so you can get to where it is you truly desire to be. The success or the journey to success. Now, that can be a difficult one, but with the right plan, you can and will have fun along the way. Now, I have to throw in a caveat right here. That doesn't mean that you won't encounter experiences that will challenge you. And it doesn't mean that you won't doubt your abilities, or you might even question, why are you even doing that? You might say to yourself, why am I even doing this? Why am I putting up with all of this? Why am I going through all of this? Especially entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs have a tendency to say that, and they say to themselves, you know what? I could just go get a job, make a paycheck. But hear this. You have that calling or something that you're truly excited about. If you're doing it just for the sake of $1, well, you're right. You're not going to perhaps last as long in that business. But if this is something that you're truly called to do, if this is a part of your, let's say, divine journey because you've been divinely inspired, then don't think that it's going to always be peaches and cream, that it's going to always be super easy, because it is not. So you might find yourself questioning yourself a lot of times or along the way, not necessarily a lot, but along the way at different times. And you'll ask yourself, what was I thinking? Why did I get into this? Now, when I'm sharing this, well, none of that sounds like fun, does it? So how can you have fun while attracting success? How can you have fun while building your magnificent life? How can you have fun while taking your business to the level that you desire to take it to? How can you have fun for actually developing the kind of relationships that you truly want to develop? How can you have fun while you're working really hard to make sure that you stay healthy? And you're wondering, what is all of this for? Right? None of that sounds like fun, does it? But here's the thing. The truth is, it is fun, but the fun is actually behind the years of programming and brainwashing that sent you in a direction that you may not have been meant to go in. And so once you get beyond the brainwashing and the programming, then you know what? That's when the fun begins. So let me give you an example. If you're a female, sometimes women are taught this is your place. This is the box, the box that you belong in, and you have to do it like this, and this. None of which, of course, aligns with what's written. And when I talk about what's written, I'm talking about the Bible. You are not a workhorse. Okay, so I won't get into that at this point. Or if you are like me. If I'm African American, so as an African American, I mean, there's stereotypes out there, in what they call black culture. And I thought, how ridiculous is that? Because I don't fit into what they have now labeled as black culture. But this is due to programming and a kind of attempt at brainwashing. And actually, it's actually a pretty good attempt, because it appears to be taking root as far as, women being labeled a certain way and called certain names that are really does not describe us, okay? Because, well, I don't know about you, if you're a female listening to this, but I am not a female dog. I'm not an animal. Mammal, yes, but I'm a higher being. Okay. So the point that I'm making is you have to break through those years of programming and brainwashing. And I don't want to leave the guys out that are listening to this. Sometimes men are taught that they have to bury their emotions, that if they cry, that means that they're weak. Well, that's ridiculous. Why do you have tear ducts? Okay, you have to be able to express your emotions so that you can be healthy and actually engage in healthy relationships. I've met guys who are not able to sustain a healthy relationship. Okay, I've met them, and believe me, they are a nightmare. Now, this is not to bash anybody. They're a nightmare because they are holding on to something that's weighing them down so they can't even be themselves. So that's a nightmare for them. So the point that I'm making is that when you talk about getting to the fun of building that magnificent, there, I can speak, right? That magnificent life, or you're talking about getting to the fun of being able to attract success and it not being such a tedious, challenging thing. And don't get me wrong, and we'll talk about challenges another time. You are supposed to go through some challenges. Okay, we'll talk about a few challenges tonight, or on this podcast. And so you are supposed to go through a few challenges, but I'm talking about the kind of challenges that weigh you down. It seems so heavy, and it makes you wonder again, why am I doing this? What is all this about? So the point is you have to work to get beyond the years of programming and brainwashing that sent you in a direction that you may not have been meant to go. So you may not have meant to go in that direction. But once you get beyond all of that, and you discover who you really are, who you were made to be, that you are, in fact, built by design to win, and what that looks like. And we're going to really talk a lot about what that looks like this month. So once you get beyond that, then that's when the fun really begins. So that's what Jamming June is all about. All month long, I'm going to be sharing insights. I'm going to suggest certain tools to you and techniques that I know work, because a lot of them, I actually have used them, and I had to use them so that I could grow. I could expand my mindset, expand my vision, expand, which is a part of my mindset, but really, let's say, deal with my emotions in the right way, and a few other things. So we're going to talk about that. So I've used a lot of these techniques that work. But before we get into all of that, let's talk about some of the things that interfere with your success energy. So I'm going to make them short and sweet, because we're going to expound on these throughout the month. Now, there are a number of things that can interfere with your success energy. So let's look at a few. But what we're going to do is we're going to kind of look at the main categories. And then when I go back to examine the main categories in other podcast episodes, and some of these will be on my YouTube channel as well. And of course, I will let you know. And if you're on my email list, well, you will definitely know, because I will be sharing that information through my email list as well. I'll also be sharing the different tools and the different techniques and some of the things that you will find very beneficial during the Jammin' June month. Okay, I'll be sharing that with you. So make sure you're on my email list. Simply go to designingyourlifetoday.com. And when the little box pops up, go ahead and put your name and your email address in there, or just go to designingyourlifetoday.com/power up today. So let's get to these categories, and then we're going to wrap up. All right, so the first category is one of the main things that can interfere with your success energy. Oh my goodness, it's other people. Listening to people who share information that make you feel inferior, that try to make you feel like you're less than, that try to separate you from your own success. In other words, your own ability to achieve by putting it into your head that you're so different to the point where you're kind of less than the rest of the class. And I'm going to talk more about that in great detail because enough is enough already. I've been, I don't like to listen to certain things and watch certain things, but at the same time, I can't address something if I'm not aware of it. So with that being said, we'll talk more about other people. Now, we're not just talking about people that you can see, let's say, on YouTube or listen to on a podcast where they think they're sharing comedy, but it's all full of sarcasms and put downs. We're talking about people who are close to you, people who work to talk you out of your dream because they didn't fulfill their dreams, or people who try to talk you out of your dream because if you expand your thinking or if you go to another level, they feel like they're going to lose you. So they do things to try and hold you back. Or people who really think that because, and I am not picking at any one, let's say a team. All right, I'm just going to put it out there. Sometimes you have the husband who's trying to talk the wife out of doing something that she's been called to do, a talent she's been given by God, but he thinks she should work a job that has nothing to do with what she's been called to do because she's supposed to help to bring in some money. Now, granted, women, we are supposed to be helpmeets, okay, when we're married. So the thing about that, and we're going to kind of unpack a lot of this in detail because I don't have time to go through all of this at night, but, or on this podcast tonight. So with that being said, I don't want to leave the wives out because sometimes wives do it to their husbands where they complain so much. And instead of supporting that man and doing whatever it takes to support that man, and we're talking about within reason, okay? Now, granted, in a perfect world, both parties had their stuff together before they got married, but it doesn't always work out like that. But here's the thing. The object of the game is anybody that's talking you out of your God-given talent. The Bible says God is first. Doesn't say the spouse is first. It says God is first. And like I said, we're going to talk about this at another time because I think it's time for us to stop making things up. And so many people are unhappy. They're working on jobs or they're doing things that they really don't like. And they feel like they're so boxed in and closed in because some human being is trying to run their lives. We're supposed to connect. We're supposed to, let's say, collaborate. We're supposed to love one another. We're supposed to be together in peace. We're supposed to be able to talk things out. But sometimes one person thinks that they're a boss. Okay. And like I said, we'll talk about this another time because I could get on this soapbox for a minute, and not in a negative way, but in a more insightful, enlightening way. Because at some point, as I said, the truth, it always stands. And so we'll talk about that in detail because I think, I wondered, they said, well, the divorce rate is like over 50% now, well over 50%. And I thought, wow, maybe if people could communicate better, and if one person didn't shut the other person down or act like they were another adult's boss, so to speak, instead of being able to lovingly communicate, perhaps things would be different. But that's another story for another time. And we will talk about this because we're going to unpack each one of these categories throughout this month. The second one is your self-image. First of all, if your self-image is intact, then you will not run in or encounter a lot of these challenges with, let's say, other people trying to stop you from being who you were put on this earth to be. Now, we all have our set of circumstances, and honestly speaking, I had my set of circumstances because I was not taught about self-image or anything like that. There were times when I was told who I wasn't. I was raised by my grandparents, so obviously I didn't have my parents around, so I was different from the rest of the class. I came from what they call a broken home. Okay, so I would have never known it was a broken home or that kind of label if I'd never heard it. What I did was I came from a home where my parents couldn't get together, and they sent me to live with my grandparents, and they were both very loving people. So everything has to do with delivery. The point that I'm making is you have to take responsibility for your self-image. You have to look at your identity and see who you really are, not the identity that the rest of the world wants to give you and put on you. And again, we're going to unpack this too, because these things are important. If you really want to achieve your goals, it's not about, working yourself, to death or working to the point where what you're doing is so unpleasant. There are people who've contributed some amazing things to this world. And they contributed these amazing things. And yeah, some of them worked from sun up to sundown, but they loved what they were doing and they lost track of time. But see, there's a difference between doing that and versus listen or doing something and working so hard because you want to make $1, because you want to make your business win, because you want to become successful and get your business to making money. Should your business make money? Yes. Okay. Because it can fund your lifestyle in a big way, but there should be fun along the way. And again, like I said, we're going to unpack this. And when you adjust and adopt the right self-image and move some of that pre-programming, and that what I call negative brainwashing, we're brainwashed one way or the other. Okay. But negative brainwashing is just so not good. But we're going to talk about that as well. Let's move on. The third one, that can really interfere with your success energy is accepting principles that are counter to the outcome you desire. So what is that all about? A principle that there are spiritual principles out there, and people make such a big deal about making money, about having a better life, and they're always looking for someone else to blame, and hence the blame game. Well, the blame game is a non-principle that's treated as though it is a principle. But the thing about that, people who engage in that way of thinking, it becomes a principle that is counterproductive to their success. Listen, I've been there, done that, but at some point I had to grow up, and I take full responsibility for anything in my life that didn't work out. And I've learned to do that. Many years ago. As I told someone, I said, I stopped doing that when I was in my 20s, late 20s, but nevertheless, still in my 20s. So the point is, I had to learn something different. But understand this, when you align with the right principles, you are going to get the outcome that you desire. Well, we're going to talk about some of those principles again throughout this Jammin' June, because this is time for you to really, when I talk about jamming, I'm talking about having fun, making your business produce in the right way, and your life and all of these things falling into place for you. So you're excited about who you are. So you're excited about your life. Okay. So you're excited about the person you see in the mirror. All of the above. Number 4, clutter. Oh my goodness. Now, clutter is not just having physical clutter. All right. So we have physical, mental, and emotional clutter. And we're going to talk about that as well. And believe me, I've got some great things that I consider to be very insightful that will help with the idea of mental, emotional, and physical clutter. Now, I have a tendency to kind of get lots of physical clutter. Why? Because, I like to buy books and as a matter of fact, I just bought 2 books, a couple of days ago, even after I said I wasn't going to buy any more, but I couldn't resist. And so the thing is, as I get lots of books and sometimes I'm sitting around and I'm reading and I'm taking notes. I've got like different notebooks everywhere and that kind of thing. But you know what? I always take the time to declutter, to put things, to organize things, to put things back in place. But the other thing is twice a year, I give away a lot of things. Okay. Even if I buy like clothes and things like that, a lot of times I will give away some of those clothes so that my closet is not overpacked with clothes. Recently, I went through this period, and I'll make this short and sweet, and then I'll give you the last category, and then we're done. But I went through this period where I realized, I'm like, wow, I have all these purses. But one of the things I noticed about all these purses is most of them were brand new. And I thought, wow, I need to do one of two things. I either need to start using these purses or I need to give them away. So I picked some of them and immediately packed those up. And for the last, I think it's been not quite 2 years, I'm going to say maybe a year and a half. For the last year and a half, I have been actually using the purses. Okay, so I'll use one, and then when after so many months, I'm like, okay, enough of this one. I'll put it in a box, and then I'll do the other one, and I'll put it in a box. And then eventually I have another box of purses to give away. Now, I don't do that so I can run right out and buy a whole boatload of new purses. Truth be told, I like to stick with one purse. I mean, just one. And when that one wears out, I try to find another one that's similar, but it doesn't seem to be as easy as it used to be. However, I didn't want those purses just sitting there and not getting any use. So I thought, you know what? Let's give away half of these, or give away the ones that you're not going to use. And then let's take the ones that you could use and use those. So I think I'm down to my last purse. And with that being said, then I have a favorite purse. I'll probably go back to that one, or I will buy another purse, but I won't have a closet full of purses. So the point that I'm making is, we'll talk more about clutter, because there's a lot to learn about clutter and why you want to declutter. I promise you, it's going to be amazing. And so finally, shying away from making connections and collaborating with other people. So that's the other thing that can stop your success energy. There are people who actually complain about being around a lot of people. Now, don't get me wrong. Sometimes, full disclosure, I like solitude. I like quiet. I like to be with me. But there are times when I want to be around my friends, and there are times when I want to hang out with someone special in my life. And so the thing about that is, and when it comes to business, there are some events that I want to go to and meet some new people. So it's all about kind of making that connection. And we're also going to talk about that too. And the energy that can generate for you and your business, especially people that work at home. I used to have a brick and mortar office, and I don't want that anymore. And I have some plans for the future, but not ready to share those yet. However, I do work at home, and I love working at home. But the thing about working at home, sometimes I want to go out and I want to hang out with some other people and be around people. It's good energy, good conversation, clean conversation, good fun, different things like that. So when you're kind of stirring it up in a way that it's positive, that energy is just like a positive energy cyclone and a productive energy cyclone, if you will, then you're going to get some amazing results. Now, this has been very broad, but as I said, throughout June, I'm going to be very specific in unpacking each one of these categories that I've talked about, because there's a lot to learn about getting to where it is you want to be and really attracting the kind of success that you want to attract. One final thing as we wrap up, these are very necessary. I've actually talked to people, and I listen to them. I listen to how they put themselves down, or how they talk about themselves, or how they talk about other people because they're jealous of the other person. Or they whine about someone who has lots of wealth and lots of cars, and they say, well, they don't need to have all of that. But what they don't realize is they are actually interfering with their own success energy. So there's a lot to learn about this. And I think we've kind of reached a time, or last thing, you guys, people complain about the tariffs and how the prices of things are increasing. And I thought about that a little bit. And so there's a couple of things, and then we're going to wrap up. Number one, I thought about it and I said, you know what? When I was a kid, there were certain foods that cost a lot or a little bit, less than $1, like a dozen of eggs. I think they were like 98 cents. And now they're like $4, $5, and $6 a dozen. So I thought about that and I said, I remember my grandfather, he used to love like sardines and crackers. And he talked about the fact that you could get 3 cans of sardines for $0.10. So when I pay attention, and I like sardines, cause I kind of grew up, he ate those. Okay. Don't judge me. So it's fish and it's good for you. Omega-3. So the point is that, it's 3 for $0.10. You can't even get like one sardine, not a can, one sardine or half a sardine for $0.10. They cost a lot more. So I'm saying all of that to say, and people are worried about the tariffs and how things are going to increase. Things have been increasing since as far back as I can remember, and they're probably still going to increase. So the object of the game is to not hinder your success energy by complaining about something you're not going to do anything about. I didn't say you couldn't. I said you're not. If you are going to do something, then by all means get to it. I'd be happy to get 3 cans of sardines for $0.10, but get to it. But the point that I'm making, you guys, is position yourself, get your success energy tight and right, get it on full blast so that you're not worried about increased prices and thinking that you're under the thumb of, let's say, a government. Okay, remember the government, it's made up of human beings. Okay, I'm going to stop talking because I could go on and on about that, but we are going to address all of these things because it's time. I mean, what do you really desire for your life? Do you desire to have a life where there's magnificence? In other words, the magnificence is where you're sleeping in a bed where you're comfortable and you have the things that you desire and you have things in place for the special people in your life, your children, your spouse. And so what do you desire for your life? That you can have. Nowhere is it written, not in, and I'm talking about the Bible. It doesn't say, hey, you know what? If the government raises prices or if they impose tariffs and we end up paying a lot more for things, we are not going to be able to afford that. You poor people, you're going to be at the mercy of a human being. That's not written anywhere. So it's time for us to kind of get beyond that and start truly designing our lives. And see, I mentioned on a podcast last month that perhaps it's time to redesign your life. Take responsibility for where you want to go. Decide, have a vision, take responsibility for getting there. We're going to do our part on this end at Designing Your Life today by bringing you those insights, those tools, those techniques, and yes, some really cool strategies and all of the above. It took me a minute to get there. So I didn't do a lot of podcast episodes last month because I had to restructure some things. Remember, I said I was redesigning. So I took the time to redesign and I made a decision that, you know what, it's time for us to step up and step out and be who we were made to be. We are built by design to win. So make the decision that you are going to do life with power. And hey, let's get to it. With that being said, I think I'm done. You guys have a magnificent day and do life with power because you're built by design to win.